Now, 1 Million Cups is an entrepreneurial educational program. And while we love to have 2 live presenters every week, sometimes that doesn't work out. The lessons learned, though, are transportable, whether they're in Wichita, Albuquerque, Kansas City, or Hopkins County, Kentucky. And one of the things that impressed me with this particular presentation when I screened it was, here's a guy who's incredibly fit. He's obviously smart. He's done some pretty cool things, but he didn't have any money. He went to his grandma and borrowed her. She gave him $4,800, and then he hit up his coach. I wish he had talked a little more about bridging from that and covering in that first year and a half to how he's going to China and how he hooked up with some of the rest, but because there's more story there to be told. But he talked about the marketing challenges. He was getting ideas from the group, and we do that here week in and week out, providing ideas from the audience to the entrepreneurs as well. So I hope you, even when we do the videos, I hope you find those helpful. And with that, Marion's going to come up and introduce our next live speaker.
I am very pleased to announce and invite Tom Hemmerle to come forward, who is the owner with his wife of Strother Funeral Home. I've also really known his old boss who sold him the business, Stephen Charlene Carson. They're a great friend of ours as well. And I'm looking forward to hearing the story of how he transitioned from being there, working there, and taking his ideas forward into the new business and what he's going to do and kind of how that works. Share it with us.
Thank you, Mary.
You're welcome.
Well, I'm probably a little bit different than most folks that come here and speak. Besides, my family did not start the funeral home. We were very fortunate to be in the funeral home business. It is a service thing. I'm going to give you a little bit about the funeral home and then a little bit about myself. The funeral home was started in 1922 here in Madisonville. It's the first funeral-only business by Mr. Barnett. He actually still has grandchildren here in Madisonville. The Ramsey girls. That's their Fred Strother bought the business from him back in the 40s. Steve Carson started working there in 1969 when they first moved to where we are. The business that's there, they said, would never last. It was too far out of town, believe it or not. It was a whole 5 minutes from downtown, and it was too far out of town to be closed within 6 months. We've been very fortunate. We have grown over the years with service. We are a service. We don't sell a lot of products. Of course, we do sell caskets. It's one of those things we have. But most of our stuff is service. We have a great staff that does that, that works with folks individually. Myself, I got into the funeral home. When I was in high school, I started working at Dillard's department store on their dock. Worked my way up at Dillard's in St. Louis. I'm from a small town in O'Fallon, Illinois. Was small when I was there. As I was working there, I had a friend that owned a funeral home there in O'Fallon, asked me to work there, and I'm like, nah, I just really don't know if that's a good idea. I'm doing pretty well where I am. I'm working my way up. I was in the management program, was doing very well. I met my wife, who was sister to Charlene Carson, the Carsons who owned the funeral home at the time, and her dad was not doing very well, and she wanted to come back to Madisonville. I'm like, boy, I'm not really sure I want to do that. Go from big city to small town. It's that, and I said, well, I'll tell you what, I got 3 weeks vacation. I've been there 10 years. Steve and Charlene need some help. I'll go there and I'll give it a try. I'll work with them and help them out for a week or 2, and then we'll see how it goes. I never went back. I absolutely love helping people. And that's what our program is there. We are there to help the people. And I went back to Dillard's and I explained to them that I was going to be leaving and why I was leaving. And I'm like, you're crazy. I'm like, nah, I don't think you understand until you actually do it. I kind of wish I would have started earlier than I did when they first asked me to do it there in O'Fallon. But We changed. When I took over the funeral from Steve and Charlene Carson back in 2008, we've kind of tried to add things. We were probably the first ones to have rental caskets for people that do cremations, so that you can still have the viewing and the service and all those things. We did websites as they came out. We keep trying to move forward. I probably do somewhere approximately 25 to 30 continuing education hours per year to try to make sure that we keep moving forward with the services and the things that we provide. Financing is not easy in a funeral home because it is a business that you're not selling a lot except service. And you don't want to say that the business isn't there, people aren't dying, the business isn't there. And it goes through its ups and downs. So it's really difficult for people to do that. Steve Fortner, I was kind of surprised the other day when I saw his he worked for SCI, major corporation, biggest funeral corporation in the world. They've gone through their ups and downs. They actually tried to buy us at one point. I'm not working. Steve wouldn't work for anybody else after the Strothers, and I'm not going to work for anybody else because I love what I do. People keep asking me when I'm going to retire, when I'm going to do whatever. I said, I just plan to get to the day when I don't have to go when they tell me to at 2 o'clock in the morning. But I love what I do. I love the people and those things. There's probably not a lot that we do that goes to other businesses except service. And that's our number one thing, is to make sure that our customers and our friends and families get what they need from us. We are currently working to do a better aftercare program than we have, to make sure those families, it doesn't end at the cemetery, that service continues on. From there, I think we'll just open it up and see if anybody has any questions. Is there anything we can do? Yes, sir.
I was wondering about, one of the things that has come up a lot in these presentations has been the challenge to find the right type of employee for the specific type of business.
That's hard.
Yeah, and I was wondering about you. How do you sort that out? Where do you find your people?
It's really difficult to do. That is one of the biggest challenges we have, because it is such a small, we have such a small group. There's 5 of us that work, and we work together all the time. I see my employees more than I see my family. Well, 2 of the 5 employees are my son works for me. But it is very difficult to do. They don't work out. We had Kevin. Yeah, Kevin.
Oh, really? I didn't know it's such a good term. Let's go deeper into this. This is fantastic.
And he worked for us a little bit after that.
What does your business and Kevin's business have to do with each other? What's the bottom went into the barbecue business?
So it is difficult. We do, there's schools there. Most of it is, I try to meet as many local people as I can and talking to different people, and then see if we can bring them in. It used to be you go to the schools and then you would try to find people that were licensed already and those things, and we don't do that as much anymore. We try to see the people that are around us and see somebody that might be a good fit that we can send to school and teach to do it the way that we want the service. It's a little easier that way than trying to get them out of the schools.
I actually have a comment, a couple of questions.
Okay.
So I'll start with my first question. The true reason that you stayed here when you came in for vacation to work at Barnett Strother was because you were working with me. Is that correct?
That might have been a very, very small part of it. I'm glad you got that.
A comment that I want to make is and I have told everybody that has ever asked me about my background. My customer service skills and training came from Steve Carson.
Right.
He taught me how to take care of people and what mattered with people. And I see that you continue that as you have taken over at Barnett Strother. So I want to give that, I guess, kudos to you for continuing that customer service line, because it is a service-oriented business. The other thing I want to bring up is you are just a service-oriented business, but you collaborate with a lot of small businesses here in town and in the surrounding areas. Can you elaborate on kind of some of the businesses that you work with and how you seek those businesses out?
We do use almost everything that we can buy local, we buy local. People get upset with us, they call us trying to sell us stuff all the time, and we won't buy outside Madisonville if we can get it in Madisonville. Doesn't matter the cost, doesn't matter that, we will only use people in Madisonville. My thing to them on the phone is, you don't live here, you don't use us, so we use Madisonville. We use almost everything in town, really. If it's possible for us to use them, we do. The banks, the insurance companies. The funeral home is insured by one insurance company, Jim, you're of course. I use First United, I use Hancock for the funeral home. I personally use another. We use them all. Insurance companies, banks, local stuff, anything that we can do local, we do. Yes, sir.
At Paragon, we've obviously got, and if it's possible to even be more focused on just service as opposed to, you at least sell some products.
Right.
We don't, it's 100% service. My analogy is simply that training, after you find hopefully the good people, which can be a challenge, then training them on your style of providing that service is absolutely so critical. How developed of a training program do you have, and any particular insights on that you could share with us?
We actually don't have a very structured training program. We kind of do it the way that I learned. I had two very, very good mentors when I started the funeral home. I was very lucky. We had Steve and DeWitt, and DeWitt Ricketts. Those two took me in and really changed the way that I looked at service. They're coming from Dillard's, which is, of course, Dillard's is huge in service and things, so it was different, but it changed the way that I looked at things. And we've kind of stayed with that. When someone comes in, they stay with me, or they stay with one of the other people. And it doesn't matter it's not that we don't want to know what you did or how you did it, but we want you to learn our way. And then if it changes, if you've got a great idea,
Sure.
then we're going to incorporate it into what we do. But you have to learn the way we do it first, to kind of make sure that everybody's on the same page. Yes, sir.
Couple questions, Tom. Are there two different licenses? Is there a funeral director and then an
Yes.
embalming license?
Yes.
To work for you, do you have to have both?
No. You don't have to have both. There's only two of it, myself and one other gentleman, that are what we call dual licensed. In the state of Kentucky, you can become a licensed funeral director after 3 years of apprenticeship. During that apprenticeship, you have to work so many case calls, you have to do so many reports to the state, and then you have to pass the law exam at the end of the 3 years. The school is 2 years to get the embalming one. You have to go for 2 years, and then 1 year of apprenticeship at the funeral home. And you have to do the same process. And you have to pass their state embalmer and law exam. So you don't have to. I have 2 employees now that are that don't have a license. They're apprentices, both of them. One being my son, and one is Alicia Bivens. She's new. And they'll both go to school. We'll pay for them to go to school, and we'll work with them as they go to school to accommodate that.
Do you find employees that you bring in that have not worked at other places, other funeral homes, easier to train than that come from other funeral homes?
Absolutely.
You train them up the way you want them, and
Yes.
they don't.
Absolutely. That goes back to the challenge of hiring people from outside and out of schools. We do stuff different here than they do in the big cities and things. When I went to mortuary school and I got there and I'm like, why are you doing that? Just seems crazy that you would do it that way. And Steve said, you worked here too long to wait to go to school when you did. Because they just don't do things there in the school and in the big cities like we do here. So it's a lot easier. We did have a person, Steve had hired a gentleman out of Chicago that worked up there for a big corporation, and he come and he worked for us. He didn't last long because he was set in his ways of what he wanted and didn't want to do it the way we wanted to do it. So that is a challenge, and it is difficult. Yes, ma'am.
I got a couple things. One, you guys do a fantastic job. We had the unfortunate, or more than unfortunate, horrific moment of losing 3 parents in 3 years. And you guys handled all that. And the way you do that is amazing. Whenever someone's on that end and receiving that, it didn't matter what time I called, this was going to be for you, Mary. You know, and then you went and did the things you needed to do and kept me comfortable, kept me happy. And the way you do it, I mean, because I've been around it personally, you got a neat personality, but whenever you go into that room where you talk to them, that tone of voice, the demeanor, the entire package of how you handle yourself in that situation is just absolutely awe-inspiring, to be honest with you. The other thing that I think is so interesting is you guys do pretty much live together because you're there all the time. You're there in the middle of the night. You're there on the weekends. You're on holidays. When we're having vacation with family and friends, you can't always do that because you're doing something else. We're taking care of a family. That puts a lot of stress on individuals. It puts a lot of stress on your family. And it's difficult to maintain that same level of customer service in that situation. I mean, I know there's times that you've got a couple weeks that we're having a vacation or a day off in some cases. So finding a person that fits in that, it makes sense that you'd like someone younger. I tell people I have young horses for the same reason. I teach them what I want to know. They don't know the other stuff. They don't know if they're allowed to do certain things because they've learned my way. And the people that I have trained, that I brought up from high school at CMR are doing a phenomenal job for the same reason because it's, you know, let's learn together, let's do this together. And the people I bring in that have a degree that want to do certain things, they're constantly saying, well, we want to do it this way. Well, that's not the way we want to do it because the customer does it. Is there a middle ground there where you feel like you can bring somebody in and divest of some of those preconceived notions and yet mold them in your direction and that works? Or have you found that pretty much 10 out of 10 times that does not work?
Pretty much 10 out of 10 times that does not work.
Oh, that helps.
Yeah, it just really doesn't, because we all do it. I mean, I'm set in my ways. I really am. My son tells me all the time how I'm doing it wrong. He's been there for few years now. I've been there for 22. He tells me all the time. So he's really hard to break it. He's been there since he was 2 years old. But you know, I don't know if you really want to call it break, but it is habits. And you do have to, it's constantly, and we do it. I'm constantly telling people, slow down. We're not in a hurry to do anything. Slow down. Pay attention. Those are things in this society at this time. It's hard to do. Everybody's in a hurry to go somewhere, to do something. Mom died, I'll be there in 5 minutes. Well, we've got a funeral in 5 minutes. Can we make it in an hour? Well, you know, and we do that. And the guys, we want to make sure that we're taking care of both things, but we need our staff to make sure that they're taking their time, listening to people, and helping them when they need it and how they need it. Slow. I'm a person that's always on the run, so it's hard for myself to do that. also. Sir?
I'm impressed, regardless of what type of business it is. It seems like this business has transferred a couple of times internally, where it doesn't seem to be like an advertised external sale. We have done that 3 times, and it works out so well, where you've got someone who is internal, has been with you and demonstrated their capabilities, and we have started out with, here's a little piece of it, and now they've got a dog in the fight. So then you go from there, and now it's yours at some point in time. And it helps somebody that's an employee that normally doesn't have access to the kind of money that would be required to just go in and purchase the business. But it gives them an opportunity to move into it and take it. And we found that very successful.
Yeah, we have over the time. It worked out very well that we were family, and I had been there for so long. Steve and Charlene was retiring at the end of 2008 before we found out that Steve was sick. So we were already in transition in doing that. We'd already worked all the legal stuff out and then how I was going to pay for it for the rest of my life.
Sure. Yeah,
Or it seems
that's
like it, right? Or it seems like it. But all those things, unfortunately, before Steve got sick, or fortunately, I guess, before Steve got sick, so it was a little easier transition. I had been there for so long and worked with Steve and Charlene that it was a very easy transition. And we make sure with our staff, they all do the same. I don't ask them to do anything that I don't do, and they do everything that I do, basically, except for, of course, the book stuff that we have CPAs and all that other stuff to take care of mainly. But so it did make it a lot easier transition than trying. We've had corporations try, SCI has tried to buy us a couple of times. I'm not working for anybody else. I love what I do, and I don't want to leave. Yes, ma'am.
Not a question, but an anecdote. When Mark and I were first married, he had a lot of family up in Anderson, Indiana, and it seemed like every time we went to Anderson from St. Louis, where we lived, it was either for a wedding or a funeral. So I knew exactly how to get to the church and how to get to the funeral home. And it seemed like we were there once or twice a year for several years in a row. And being an out-of-towner, coming to a place where you actually knew the people when you walked in the door that weren't family, made a big difference for us, and especially for me being new in the family. I felt like these were extended relatives. I'd seen them so many times. But it made a good difference even for people who lived out of town.
That's good. Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
What are your ideas for expanding moving forward, and what was the biggest, oh my God, I didn't know moment? Because you feel like you know the business until you own it, you have to make some decisions.
People. You know, that was the hardest thing to me is finding the right people and getting them trained. We are, you know, of course, we're always doing different things to try to help us move forward a little bit. I'm on a board of an international corporation, OGR. It's independent owned funeral homes. And so that gives me an opportunity to go to other funeral homes across the United States and see how they do things, what they're doing, who's doing what, to try to make things a little bit different. Some of the stuff we use are looking at doing, some of it we're not. We're actually going opposite of what a lot of funeral homes are going to, no showrooms and smaller lounges, and we're going in the opposite direction because I think that we're getting ready to have a big construction project at the funeral home where we're taking family rooms out and putting a bigger lounge in and doing things to make families more comfortable there. We still have long visitations where in the big cities they don't do that too much anymore. They'll have an hour visitation or something. We do have a lot of family. And as you say, the people coming in, you'd be surprised by how many are the same people. They come in all the time.
Sure.
And it's really great because you meet a lot of people, you get to talk to a lot of people. And that's what I like the staff to do, is to be out there and talk to everybody. Make sure that you make friends and acquaintances, whatever it is, because that's where...
Those are your future customers.
That's right. That's our future customers. We want to make sure that you know them in that. I hugged more ladies. My son, when he first started working at the funeral home, he's like, I'm telling Mom all the people, all these.
Nah.
She hugged. Gosh, I never saw a person hug so many people. But I absolutely love to talk to people, and it's just one of those things.
I have a question and maybe a follow-up to the question. First, the question is, does your business offer prepaid plans?
Yes, we do.
And, okay, so my question is, does it affect your bottom line if, let's say, I'm gonna exaggerate here, but a person that's maybe 20 buys a prepaid plan and lives to be 100, how does that work? I mean, it's prepaid and inflation's gonna increase, it's 60 years from now.
Right, and that's, we have a couple different things. One, we have a trust fund, and if you come in and pay for it, we've kind of gone back and forth on guaranteeing funerals. The services and the merchandise, the things that we pay for you, we're a little bit different. We try to make sure that we do everything for you. So we pay for opening and closing graves and newspapers and day cuttings and all those things, flowers, so that you don't have to. We can't guarantee those things. We used to, and we had a cemetery bill for $200 to $500 one day, and there's not an amount of interest out there that's going to cover that. We have a trust fund that we put the money in that pays a little over 2.5% compounded monthly, so it stays up. It does a pretty good job. We do have preemies that have been there longer than me, and they're doing pretty well. We also have an insurance one that's doing pretty good. We're starting to work on a little bit of that because they're helping us with the casket prices that are helping us, because that's our biggest expense. Really, the casket prices are the big. They go up 7-8% a year. The funeral home, we haven't gone up in years, but the caskets and those things have really, with the price of metal and fuel and things, they've really taken a hit. That's why we stopped guaranteeing them for a while. Yes, sir.
Most people here know that my wife's involved in tourism. The people that come from out of town, do you find that they stay in hotels or they stay with family? Or
Most people seem to stay with family. We do have a couple links, and we do have hotels that'll give us rates if they ask us, and it's on our website. If they ask us, and we can call them. We're more than happy to make arrangements for them to find a place to stay, and they'll get a bereavement rate normally through there. A little bit back on, where was I on that? I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry? Yeah, that, it's just been a little difficult to keep them balanced, to make sure that it's a good balance. But as long as it's in the trust fund, and as long as the trust fund's making money and staying with we try to stay very low going up. So the trust fund has been making more than what the funerals are going up. The biggest challenge, I guess, has been the Medicaid. This Medicaid thing has been really, really difficult. It's changing and changing and changing every year on how they're allowing folks to have money. Medicaid has done a great job with the folks that are going in nursing homes and things like that, allowing them to pay for stuff with us, and that being exempt. A lot of people don't know that until they get there, but the person can pay for their funeral and have it paid for, and that money is exempt when they go into a nursing home. So that is huge. It keeps you from paying for your mom or dad's funeral because they can pay for the stuff before they use all their money up when they go in the nursing home.
One more question, but we got time for, we try to close on time here. Any other questions? Tom?
I appreciate everybody for having me. Thank you very much. She's been trying for a long time to get me to come here. And I appreciate Jimmy Riddle.
Actually, we had him scheduled, and there was a UK ball game. He was unaware that his wife bought the tickets for it. He goes, I'll come, I promise I'll come if you need me to, but please don't make me. So I put the monkey on his back and I said, well, can you find us somebody? So that's why Jimmy Riddle came. He's like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do, but Tom said I need to be somewhere. I'm like, I tell you exactly what you need to do. Everybody, we have Ruth Ann Padgett's going in for surgery this week, so keep her in your mind and thoughts and your prayers as she gets some things done. Y'all know she fell a couple months ago, and she's having some repair work done. We are going to meet again next week, which is the 17th. It's hard to believe that Christmas is in 2 weeks, but it is. So on Christmas week, we of course will not be meeting, and on New Year's, we will not be meeting that week. So next week's event is the last one for the fiscal year of 2014. I look forward to 2015, and if you have any suggestions on who you want to see, please talk to us and let us know about that. Tomorrow I'm going to Providence to their Chamber of Commerce. They've invited me to speak about one of the meetups there, and so we're going to try to bring more people from outside in as well. So have a safe week.
And FYI, next week you'll be out in the dining room, so there'll be a meeting that will already be in here.
So we have cookies.
So you will be out in the dining room. And if you want to bring cookies, you'll have cookies.
Sweet.